I'd like to introduce our speaker today. He's Todd Slisher. He's Executive Director of the Sloan Museum of Discovery, as well as the Longway Planetarium. He has been part of the Sloan Museum since 2014, after spending about 13 years at the Detroit Science Center, now the Michigan Science Center here in Detroit. And one quick housekeeping item before we get started with Todd. If you have questions, feel free to use the Q&A icon at the bottom of your screen to write down any questions that you might have for Todd, and we will answer as many as possible once we've completed our run through the brand new Sloan Museum of Discovery, which is going to be coming up online in mid-July. So go ahead, Todd. Tell us a little bit about your experiences at the Sloan since 2014. I understand this place is basically been reinvented from the ground up.
Yeah, absolutely, Bob. And thanks for having us on and doing this little sneak peek. We really appreciate MotorCities and all the great work that you guys do for the automotive heritage of the region. It's a great partnership and a great thing to see all your events and everything else. But no, Sloan has been kind of a beloved place of our vehicle community for a long time. Obviously, Flint is the original home of Buick and Chevrolet Motors and General Motors, and so we have a vast automotive history here, and Sloan's always been a part of it with a large vehicle collection and the Buick Gallery space and other places like that. But about 6 years ago, we started thinking about reinventing Sloan and trying to reimagine it, because our exhibits had been fairly static for about 25 years previous to that. It's definitely time for a refresh. The building was not the most functional building in the world, let's just put it that way. So it was something that we knew it was time for a redo. So about almost 6 years ago, we launched into a kind of listening session with our community, finding out, what did they want Sloan to become? What did they want to be featured? What are they interested in? And we learned a lot of things through those listening sessions. And obviously, our automotive history is a big part of that. And one of the things that we heard is, although Sloan did a pretty good job of telling Flint, Genesee County history, we had an automotive display place, the Buick Gallery, kind of down the street from us that wasn't very well visited. And they wanted the cars here in the main museum. So we've actually built an all-new vehicle gallery. We just recently announced it's going to be named the Durant Gallery. That's in thanks to a generous gift from General Motors after Billy Durant, who was the founder of Chevrolet and Buick, and then Chevrolet, and then eventually General Motors. But that's something that we're really excited to share with everybody from the MotorCities audience, that as well as all of our other new galleries. We have a new history gallery that covers Flint, Genesee County history, a hands-on science gallery that looks more at STEM and engineering, math, and science and technology areas. And then we even have a gallery for early childhood, where we've got for those kind of 0 to 6 year old, the younger kids in that gallery. But all throughout, we have little pieces of automotive technology. For instance, there's a take apart car, even in the early childhood gallery, that you can take the wheels off and change the fluid and change the wiper blades. So lots of interactive experiences in the new Sloan. This whole project is about a $30 million project. It brought the old Sloan, which was about 58,000 square feet, up to 107,000 square feet, so double the size of our building, and really helped us accomplish things like get some higher ceiling space, let some light into the building. I'm standing here in front of you, kind of in the new circulation corridor of the new Sloan near the front lobby space, but I think people will be impressed when they get here and see the whole new building. We open up on July 16th, you referenced, middle of July. The 16th and 17th is our grand opening weekend.
So tell us, why do you think that Mid-Michigan needed a new Sloan, and how much is different?
Well, there's a lot different. As I mentioned, the old Sloan was getting, I guess maybe I'd say, a little tired. It had been the same for a long period of time in terms of our exhibits and display spaces. And plus, my belief is a museum should be a community hub. It should be someplace where the whole community comes together. And we just really didn't have the spaces for community gatherings or meetings or other things like that in the old Sloan. So when we re-envisioned it, we wanted to bring together a couple of different things. One was make it a big community meeting space. So we now have a great big new cafe. We have a place to have lunch. We have a spot for after hours meetings. We have a new community room. So that was one important thing. But then also to take both the pieces of our mission, the science part and the history part, and kind of smash them together in this Discovery Museum concept. That's why we even changed the name to the Sloan Museum of Discovery. The whole idea is you can discover science, you can discover history, you can discover our cars, discover you. And so that was kind of the concept behind the new Sloan Museum of Discovery and bringing this all together.
All right. Well, do you want to take a walk and show us some more of the new spaces?
Sure, we can do that. We can kind of pivot the camera around a little bit here. I'm not sure how well this is going to work, but actually, if Brian, can we, look around to the front lobby here? I might disappear in all the light. One of the things we wanted to do in the new Sloan is bring in a lot of light into our different spaces. Not as much the history gallery, because we have a lot of artifacts there, but we wanted to bring light and slide in some ceiling height. So we have this brand new kind of entryway lobby space that people will first come into. And then right around the corner is the new cafe. There's a gift shop around the other corner here. And then what we're going to do is we're going to walk back over towards the vehicle gallery and talk a little bit about more in the Durant Gallery, our cars and car collections. So as you can follow me around here, we're going to point down the hallway. Now I have to warn everybody, this is an active construction site. We are installing exhibits. There are people all over this building right now. So if you hear construction sounds, if you hear music from radios, if you hear people talking, that's what's going on. We're very busily installing all of our exhibits. So we'll start walking down this way. And Bob, I don't know, you might be able to play that video of the exterior if you want, kind of while we take a little walk down to the vehicle gallery, past the history gallery, and kind of show some of that. We have some drone footage that we sent you about the exterior of the building. It's really changed. The old Sloan was kind of low and tucked away. The new Sloan is a very dramatic building, and so you can kind of see that on some of the exterior shots.
All right, we will share that video.
Okay, sounds good. We'll give it a shot, and we'll see you back here in a couple minutes when we get down near the vehicle gallery.
They were saying a little echo, but of course that's because we're in the big, huge area, so that'll, yeah.
Let's see if they're,
Well, he's getting there.
he's trying to bring it up, right?
Yep, I think so.
Go ahead and mute, guys. I'm going to play the video.
you only list your vacation home on Airbnb, you might attract someone looking for a quaint little studio.
Okay, Bob, are we back with you? Maybe, maybe not. I can't tell. I can't see Bob. There we go.
Yeah, go ahead, guys.
Yeah, he's gonna pop out.
All right, we took a pause. We actually stopped by the history galleries before we get back to the Durant Gallery, which is the vehicle gallery. Maybe my lighting's not great here standing against the windows, but that's okay. You don't need to see me. You need to see this thing in the background. We paused in the history galleries to show you our World War II era Buick Hellcat tank. This actually was a light tank destroyer built by Buick for World War II. And we have one in our collection that we acquired back in the mid-90s and restored. It actually runs. So that's one of the reasons that there is a glass door behind it, because we actually move this thing around and move it in and out of the museum and take it on field trips every once in a while just to keep it in good running order. And then the other interesting things, people that aren't familiar with this tank, the Hellcat tanks, the tank destroyers more properly, were a lightly armored, very fast tank. They could travel at about 55 to 60 miles an hour top speed, which were much faster than the German tanks and the heavy US and British tanks that were fighting in World War II. And so what they would use these for, so they would send these out looping around the main tank lines and hit the tanks from behind. Now, it still had pretty good armaments. It was still able to destroy the German tanks. And then before the German tanks could turn around and return fire, they would speed back out of the way. So it was kind of a hit and run device meant to destroy German tanks. It was very effective. And it's pretty incredible to ride in, speeding along at about 50 miles an hour in a tank when normally they only go about 10 to 15 miles an hour back in the World War II area. But that's one of the things that people can come and see and learn a little bit more about in our new history galleries, kind of before we get back into the vehicle gallery.
Right. Now, was that tank made in Flint?
Yes, it was made in Flint at Buick City. All of the pieces, parts of it assembled there. And then most of them were shipped over to Europe for World War II. It is kind of rare to see them in the United States now because the US Army left them all in Europe after that time period. And so there are not very many of these actually stateside still around. We actually obtained this tank from the Yugoslavian Army back in the 1990s and brought it in here and restored it to running order and the correct way that it was all supposed to be configured back for World War II.
Great. So, we saw that exterior video and it looks like not only, has the outside dramatically changed, but there's actually more there. I mean, you have actually physically expanded the building and the area for exhibits.
Yes, we have. We've increased, almost doubled the size of the building. There used to be an old courtyard in the center of the building. That's all been filled in for new exhibit space, for a new traveling exhibit gallery and our new science gallery. And then we bumped out various sides in the front of the building. But we really didn't use a lot of the old building except for the exterior walls, the foundations, some floors. We even ripped the roof off the building. So that is a pretty dramatic change. And when people walk into the new Sloan, if they've been to the old Sloan Museum, they won't even recognize it. They'll think they're walking into a brand new building. You won't actually, in fact, most people walk in here and they go, "This is Sloan? Really? I have no idea." So it's really a dramatic and transformational change of the whole museum and the footprint.
So how were you able to raise $30 million to complete this amazing reimagining?
A lot of begging. Well, no, it's just we had people that believed in our mission, believed that we needed a world-class museum like this in Flint that reflected our, automotive history as well as our science and history missions. And so we got a lot of help from area foundations. Of course, General Motors has helped us out quite a bit on this project, but other people like the Alfred P. Sloan Foundation, area families, and then individuals, businesses, and a little bit of help from the state of Michigan as well. There are a couple of Michigan appropriations in there, but the whole project is $30 million. There's about 19 million in it for the building itself, and then about $7 million worth of exhibits, and then other auxiliary pieces that bring it all the way up to the $30 million goal. But it's been quite a project. We broke ground back in June of 2019. Yes, we were slowed down a little bit due to COVID. You know, we had construction shutdowns. Luckily, we had most of our materials ordered for the building before the supply shortages, change shortages really started to hit. But even those affected us a little bit on some of the finishing pieces and with our exhibits. It has slowed down our exhibit process a bit, but we didn't let it stop us. We wanted to keep going forward, and now we're just about a month away from opening.
Right, and you were able to maintain interest in the museum by having a satellite center outside of Flint.
Yes, we did. It was the Sloan Museum at Portland Center. It was just outside the city limits of Flint in Burton, Flint suburb. And this was a local local mall that we took over the former JCPenney anchor store and set up a 60,000 square foot museum in that space. So during the time that the main Sloan Museum was closed, that facility was open, and we did have displays of our historic vehicles. We actually had about 38, 39 cars over there, as well as different traveling exhibits and other exhibits that appeal to our audience. But that was a great temporary spot. However, Sloan Museum at Portland closed on May 15th. And the reason we did that is we needed to get everything back here into this building. So all those cars, all those artifacts, everything else had to come back into Sloan to populate the main museum.
Outstanding. And how was the visitation? How well received was the museum at Portland Center?
Oh, Sloan Museum at Portland was actually quite well received. We had quite a bit of good visitation over there, especially before the pandemic. Of course, 2020, 2021, we really took a hit on our visitation. We were closed for about 4 months as a museum in the pandemic. And then just due to hesitancy of people being out and about and being careful, we had capacity limits at first, but now we're back fully open, welcoming guests, and attendance has picked back up a lot. Just to kind of give you some perspective, the old Sloan and Longway together, Sloan Museum and Longway Planetarium used to serve about 150,000 people a year. We're expecting 250,000 or more to come through the new facility within the first year. So we're really excited to show people what we've been able to do.
Outstanding. Well, let's see some more if we can.
All right, so we're going to kind of roll around here on our cart, showing you some of the history gallery that we're going through. It's very much a construction zone. So as I mentioned, we've got people working in here all over, staging artifacts, putting things in, but we're going to kind of just roll back towards the vehicle gallery. So the history galleries are kind of an interesting place. We have a concept in here that we've got a blue line of ribbon material running throughout. That represents the Flint River, because so many of our historical perspectives attach to the Flint River or have some sort of touch point on the Flint River. And so everything from early Native Americans to trappers and traders and early settlers to our logging industry that started up in Flint, but then eventually the carriage industry and even the car industry were all linked to the Flint River. And so, and even more recent history, like the water crisis and other things, the river plays a part. So we kind of use that as a unifying theme as we're going through the history exhibits. And then kind of when you get to the end of the history gallery is where we get over into the new Durant Gallery, which will be our automotive showplace. And this is an 11,000 square foot gallery. It's going to allow us to show off a lot of the cars in our collection. We have 105 at last count. And so we'll be able to see a lot more. So let's see if we can maneuver our camera into the Durant Gallery here and show off a little bit of what you're going to see. Do you have any questions popping up, Bob?
Actually, you already answered one that came from Roger Luxick, who asked about how much of the 30 million went to building improvements and how much went to exhibitry. So I think we covered that one.
Yeah, it was something that we actually increased our budget on the project a couple of times. One, because things were getting a little bit more expensive and we had some cost overruns. But another is we just didn't want to sacrifice. Originally, our exhibit budget was just a little over $5 million. And when we actually came to designing and planning out all the exhibits, we realized that it wasn't sufficient, that we weren't going to get everything we wanted for that. It's just over $5 million budget. So we did increase that exhibit budget to $7 million and kept fundraising, and luckily the community was very supportive, and we were able to get all of the exhibits in that we wanted. Uh-oh, I can't hear you, Bob. You're muted, I think. You were saying something. He's got the little red mute microphone next to him.
Are there more cars that are going to be coming into that space?
Yes, there will be. So you can kind of see some of them behind me, like the 1991 Riata was the last year of that. We have concept cars in the vehicles, like the next thing next to it is the 56 Centurion. That was a concept vehicle built originally to show off some different automotive advances. One unique thing about that vehicle is that is the first vehicle that had a backup camera in it ever established. There's a black and white TV set into the dash and a big old camera pointing out the back of that vehicle. But the Centurion was kind of a concept that later some of the technology that went into this concept got integrated into other vehicles. So we were able to see that a little bit better. Oh, I got to step this way. I don't want to step in front of the cars though. That's what your audience really wants to see. But then we have a lot of other vehicles that will be staged throughout the gallery. Right now, we're just starting our stages of loading them in the building. So they're not in the final positions that they'll be in. There's a lot of graphics that's supposed to go up around the cars. There are things called reader rails that go in front of them that give you more information. There are some interactive pieces in here. And eventually, we'll even have an interactive exhibit in this area called the assembly line. And this is a spot where people kind of can experience what it was like to be on the assembly line for a vehicle and put together the different pieces and parts, realize things, especially in the early period of assembly lines, back where they used to have speed ups and things used to not be very safe. We're talking back in the 40s here and kind of before the sit down strike in those areas. In fact, that's what all of the sit down strike and the forming of the UAW as the first contract with General Motors was about. Was part of safe working conditions. They weren't really as worried about wages. It was mostly the safe working conditions and being able to spend a little bit more time with their families. Yeah.
Well, hi there, Brian.
Hey there, your Roman reporter here.
Good to see Brian. Yeah.
I'm glad you mentioned that though, because that's one of the key stories that you told here, which is sort of the labor side of that. You had a huge exhibit on the Flint sit-down strike and so the impact of that. So will that fit into the auto exhibit? Or more?
Actually, it'll be in the history galleries rather than the auto gallery. But there is a big section about the sit-down strike there. And in fact, what we've done is we've taken one of the old factory windows that was in one of those buildings that was occupied during the sit-down strike, and we've turned it into a video display screen where you will walk in and you'll find out things about the sit-down strike. You'll actually kind of almost experience in some ways. You'll hear the breaking glass, things like that. You'll hear the shouts outside of the Michigan National Guard that is setting up to kind of protect everybody as they were going through that striking period, and find out a lot more information, of course, about the sit-down strike and how it led to the first contract with the UAW with General Motors. And that became kind of the template contract for many, many other unions around the country, both in the automotive industry and in other industries as well.
I was going to ask too, the strategy for vehicles going into the gallery. So is there a particular story that's intended to be told sort of chronologically or innovation wise?
Yeah, it is kind of a chronological story, although not specifically decade by decade. What we've done is we wanted to talk about the advancement of the automotive vehicles through the years. And so what we did is took some of our very early cars that are in here, like we have two of the three existing 1905 Buicks left in the world that we can show off and talk about, that early period of automotive history, right around the turn of the century, the aughts, the teens, and kind of the advancements that were going on as people changed over from the wagon industry into the vehicle industry. Now, Flint is known as the vehicle city, but that name's not from cars. That name is from wagons. There were the big three wagon companies were in Flint, the Patterson Wagon Company, Durant the Flint Road Cart. So basically, they were able to, those were the largest wagon companies in the country, and they were shifting over into making automobiles. And so that's where the name Vehicle City comes from Flint, not actually from the cars, but from the wagons. So we tell that early story, but then we use the different cars in our collection and borrowed vehicles to tell innovations in the advancements of motors, design, safety, comfort of the vehicle. So just like the Centurion had the first backup camera, we use a lot of the concept cars to talk about innovations in vehicles, additions of the first cars with seat belts and everything else like that. And so we are able to kind of walk people through the evolution of the car in the gallery. And so that's kind of our main concept here as we're going through. Now, these aren't in chronological order, the cars that you're seeing as we're going through. Brian's playing with the camera here to give you a little bit better view of the Centurion, I think. But we're able to kind of tell that story. And one of the cool things as we get to the end of the gallery, you'll see we also have an agreement with General Motors to feature a new concept car in this gallery that will be on a rotating basis. And that'll actually switch over every year. We'll get to that concept car here in a moment as we get back around the farther corner of the gallery.
So in terms of talking about Flint as the vehicle city, I'm sure some of the old elements of Flint's history from the old museum, stories about folks like Dort and Bishop and Mott, you still are including those, and those are being integrated into the new spaces as well, correct?
Yeah, we are. Those are, we're having a little problem with our cart here, but that's okay. Those are basically integrated into the history gallery. We have an entire area, which is a kind of carriage to car story in there, talking about the transfer over of the carriage industry into the vehicle industry. Of course, Durant and Dort were very involved first in the carriage industry, and then later on in bringing David Buick to Flint. Billy Durant did, and kind of brought him in, started Buick Motors, got excited about automobiles, and then started, of course, the switch over. And in fact, there's all of the carriage companies eventually tried to make cars in Flint, but many of them didn't survive. I mean, we know names today like Buick and Chevrolet, but there are the Dorts, there are the Littles, there are the Stars, there are the Durants. There are a number of different vehicles that never really even made it. One acquisition that we had recently was a 1909 Patterson wagon. Patterson was one of the big carriage companies, and they made cars from 1909 till about the early 20s. And so their very first attempt looked very much like a carriage, just with a lever in it, and I think it was about a 5 horsepower motor was about it. And those, but we recently acquired a 1909. We think this was only one of 51 ever produced, and we think it may be the last one existing in the world, unless there's one in the private collection out there someplace that we're unaware of, but we don't know of any others that are publicly displayed or available. So that's those kind of things are what you'll find in the gallery, kind of telling the whole evolution of the car story.
And are these some of the informational panels?
Yeah, those are
sort of in
graphics
the
panels
works?
that are getting ready to go up on the walls. They're not mounted yet, but they'll be mounted soon by the time people arrive. But, one of the things, actually, have people seen the Wildcat? I think so. The Wildcat too. This is
Never get enough of it.
Oh yeah, I know. This is a 54 Wildcat. It was a concept car built for Buick, and really kind of the idea behind this is Buick wanted to try to compete with some of the European roadsters and sports cars that were being built at the time. So they came up with this Wildcat concept, and it's really a gorgeous vehicle. Boy, I wish this had been a production model. Oh
So-
yeah, this is definitely one of those dream cars.
Yeah, we have a question from TJ Mendelson, and he asks if there were any plans to include Fisher Body.
Yes, we do have Fisher Body represented within our history exhibits, talking about the conversion of carriages to cars, because of course they were involved in both. But yes, Fisher Body and things like AC Spark Plug, things like that, all of those iconic industries that were in Flint around the turn of the century and the early automotive history are here, either in our vehicle gallery or in our new automotive gallery at the Durant Gallery.
And I know that you mentioned an interactive is going into this space. I know that interactive activities for all ages are going to be part of this. Tell us more about what's happening in terms of that and the influence of STEM and education into the building of the new Sloan Museum of Discovery?
Sure. So that's one of the things, Bob, that came from our early focus and listening groups is that when we talked to people, we realized that the way Sloan Museum had been built was a environment that appealed, mostly to adults, to be honest. The exhibits were aimed at adults, and we would see, and came out in our focus groups that a lot of people were bringing families here with their kids, and there wasn't all that much for their kids to do. They would walk through the history galleries, but the way that adults would learn about things is they would see an artifact or a car or something, read the label and read about it. Kids don't learn that way. They learn by getting their hands on things. So we wanted to have many more interactive experiences throughout our gallery spaces. So for instance, in the new history galleries, we have a number of exhibits that are hands-on, that are not artifact based. For instance, in the pioneer era, we were talking about people migrating to Michigan and what they would bring with them. So we have a pack your wagon exhibit where basically there is a literal wagon there that you load up and decide how much food, your furniture, your personal possessions, other things that you might need. And of course, there's way too much. You can't fit it all on the wagon. The wagon is actually weight driven, so it dumps everything once you get too much weight on it. And so there are exhibits like that. There's a log cutting exhibit in the history galleries talking about the logging area where you can experience what the force is like to operate a crosscut saw, and many, many more like the assembly line that I talked about here as well. So those are interspersed even throughout the history exhibits. And then our science galleries and our early childhood galleries are all hands-on. So there we have many, many more hands-on exhibits. In the science galleries, we have the huge water table that runs through when we talk a lot about the water cycle and shipping and locks and dams and hydroelectric plants and everything else like that. We have earth science exhibits in a giant globe that people could climb up, and well, kids primarily will climb. Adults will take the stairs or a lift that experience earth science. So volcanoes, earthquakes, weather, climate, other things along those lines. Even a lot of energy exhibits are driven by a giant flywheel that you can crank or add energy to and then lower devices on and take energy off of. So really, we wanted to kind of follow that direction that we heard in our focus group and get much more hands-on in the exhibits that we have. Now, there are still lots of things for adults. There are still lots of great cars, lots of artifacts, a lot of learning that can go on, but we wanted to intersperse those with the exhibits that appeal a little bit to a more younger audience too.
Imagine the school groups, going to be up, the attendance from school groups, and you might even talk about the school that's next door.
Yeah, absolutely. We do a heavy traffic in field trips and school groups, both in the building and with outreach programs. Already, we're serving about 60,000 school kids a year through our buildings, and then we anticipate that probably will go up to somewhere around 90,000 once we get the new Sloan open and have all the school groups coming through. We have partnerships with area schools, and we even built a school right next to the museum that is attached physically. It's a K-8 public charter school. And so those kids actually come over into the museum and get programming several times a week in both science, social studies, and history areas. And they're physically attached, so they can just walk into the building, walk out of the building. It's really a great partnership.
And we had a question from Richard Kranz. Did you visit other museums, auto museums, science museums for exhibit ideas? If so, which ones, and what ideas came out of that experience?
Good question. Yes, we did. We visited a lot of other museums when we were looking at. So, of course, we were down at sister institutions like the Gilmore, and then also over at the Saratoga Museum and a couple others like that. We made our way out for science museums to places like the Exploratorium and places out in California that we were looking for ideas for hands-on exhibits. Various children's museums, like there's a new children's museum in Columbia, South Carolina called Adventure that we went down and checked out. We even looked at a bunch of museums on the East Coast, some Hall of Fames, some aquariums and other things, just to see what the most innovative concepts were in exhibit design at that phase. So yes, we did check out a lot of different museums and institutions around the country looking for ideas when we were in the early concept phases of our project to try to make sure that the new Sloan was going to be world class and represent what is new and innovative in museums today.
Okay, so do you have other spaces that you're planning to show us, or?
Well, I think primarily today we were going to stick to history galleries and science and the vehicle gallery, but I did want to come down and show you the concept.
It's the noise from the car. You guys are along for the ride.
Yes, forgive our technical difficulties with the cart.
Yeah, so believe it or not, yes, this is a vehicle. This is the ENV. This is a concept car from General Motors that they built for the Asian market. I've had people walk in and say, it looks like a Power Ranger helmet. And it does kind of.
That's a good point.
It's a personal mobility vehicle. It's meant for crowded urban centers, so it's very small. It's also an autonomous vehicle. So inside, and I don't know if Brian can get the cart a little bit closer there, there's no steering wheel. There are no pedals. All there is a central pillar with a computer that basically you type in where you want to go. And it's supposed to take you through different areas. Now, the concept, this is a concept vehicle. I think there were 10 ever built. So this is not a production model, but this was to show an example of what the future of the automobile, especially in crowded urban centers, might become. And so we will have various concept vehicles that will rotate through about once every year after they get done kind of doing the car show circuit that will be here in Sloan Museum. And the way that we're using these is so we can talk about what the future of the automobile might be like as well. So as we are kind of going along, we don't want to ignore the fact that the automotive industry is ever evolving and there's new stories being told all the time and new vehicles out all the time. And we want to be able to showcase some of the new vehicle technology as well as all of the historical vehicles that you see here at the Sloan Museum.
So we had a question from Sue, one of our MotorCities volunteers, and she asked, do you still have the old restoration garage in the other building?
We do. A lot of people ask us, well, what's going to happen with the Buick Gallery? And the Buick Gallery space will be a space for storage of cars and for maintenance and restoration on cars. That's what we're going to use that space for. So it'll no longer be a public display space. That will be this new 11,000 square foot gallery here at Sloan. And it's much larger display space than was in the old Buick Gallery, which was only about 6,000, 7,000 square feet of display space. So we're able to kind of double our display space. But then that facility will still be used for car maintenance and for car restoration. So yes, the garage is still over there, paint booth is still over there, hoists and lifts and everything else are still over there. And we like to maintain some of the vehicles that we have in running condition. And so that's the spot that we'll take them over there to maintain them, change fluids, everything else like that.
Okay, and one thing that a lot of people don't realize about museums is that they have collections that go well beyond what you can see on any given day on display inside the actual museum. So tell us a little bit about, your total collection, what percentage you can see on display on any given day, and where those are stored.
Yeah, well, very typically for museums that are collecting institutions like ours, only about 10% of the objects in the collection are on display at any given time. The remaining 90% are generally in storage, and they are available to researchers and archivists by appointment, but you do have to make an appointment with our archivist or our collections team to go down and access those items. But we try to collect items that are significant to Flint and Genesee County history. So that's kind of our collecting scope. And this includes all areas of history, automotive history, of course, but then lots of community stories as well. We're currently trying to do an audio history collection of some areas of the city, particularly like the St. John's neighborhood, which was a thriving African-American community that was kind of plowed under by 475 when they created that freeway bypass. We're now at the point where the living people that used to live in that community are definitely elderly, and we're trying to collect all of those stories before that history is lost forever. So we do a lot of this. We have paper archives, we have objects, furniture, photographs, everything else within our collection. The three-dimensional objects, there's probably about 100,000 in the collection, and if you count like every scrap of paper and every picture, we have probably 400,000 objects in the collection. And again, those are available to researchers by appointment. And if you want to go to our Sloan website, if you want to do some research, you can come over. We have probably 30 researchers a month coming into our building, using our archives, using our collections to find out things about, well, how did this car exactly roll off the line? What were all the parts? What was the original color? What was the original fabric? Or, you know, more esoteric stuff about Flint, Genesee County history.
Well, that collections question just stimulated a couple other questions. So Richard Kranz, who asked one earlier, also asks about what percentage of the collection is owned by the museum and what percentage is from Buick collectors. And do you work out any agreements with other museums to borrow items to display at the Sloan?
Yes, we do. Now, really, in our collection, that's 100% owned by the Sloan Museum. But we do work out agreements with other museums to both bring items in here for short-term or long-term display, or to lend items out to other museums for display in their facilities. So for instance, the EMV that we just talked about, that's a loan from General Motors. That is not an object that's in our collection. That is still owned by General Motors. There's a loan agreement that they will have it in the building for a certain period of time. We do bring in other items to be part of that, but pretty much most of our displays are our collection objects. We generally bring in something from another museum or another even individual collection for a short time period to tell a specific story. Maybe it's, you know, a specific car that we don't have represented that was built in Flint that we wanted to have in here. For a long time, we didn't have a 53 Corvette in our collection. We were loaned one by some individuals that was in the museum, but then we eventually went and purchased a 53 Corvette. It was number 112, so that we could have that be part of our actual collection and that we didn't have that whole existing still. So that's kind of how the way things work with museum collections.
Right. And is there a publicly accessible list that people can look at or browse through that relates to the items in your collection?
Not yet, but we are working on it. So we are currently in the process of going through our paper archives and creating a series of guides that basically lists items that are all in our paper archives. They're a little bit easier to digitize, a little bit easier to work on. Eventually, we would like to digitize the entire collection and have it up online, but we're not there yet, unfortunately. Give us a couple of years for that one.
Oh, I understand, believe me. So as we look to wrap up a little bit, let's talk about the actual opening next month. Talk to us about some of the special events and special things that are going to be happening, and you know, what things the public can take part in and how they can get more information about all that.
All right. Well, we have a lot of different kind of preview events scheduled for the week before opening. Some of them are for donors to the campaign. Obviously, that's not open to the public, but hey, there's still time. If you want to buy a brick that could go out front, you could make a donation and get into that event. That one's on Tuesday. We have a partners event for all of our partners that worked on the project, whether it was general contractors or exhibit manufacturers or anybody else coming in. And then we have a ribbon cutting that is actually on Thursday on the 14th, July 14th at 11 a.m. That is open and welcome if you want to come attend the ribbon cutting of the new Sloan Museum. And then the big grand opening weekend itself is on Saturday and Sunday, the 16th and 17th. And we'll have food trucks, we'll have various, you know, face painting and balloons and all of those other pieces. We'll have special projects going on in our new Makers Lab and in our education spaces for people to participate in. And it's really a big celebration weekend showing off, you know, what the new museum is, all the new exhibits, and all of the different pieces of the new Sloan Museum of Discovery. So that's really the kind of big event. Now, if you do want tickets to come to that grand opening weekend, they go on sale July 1st. They will be available online, and we are doing timed tickets because we do anticipate we're going to sell out that entire weekend. So if you want to get tickets for that July 1st, look on our website and you can purchase tickets to a hour time block. To, you know, you can stay longer than an hour, but that's the period that you need to arrive in, just so we can kind of control some of the traffic flow through the building.
And what is that website?
It's www.sloanlongway.org or sloanmuseum.org. Both of those work.
I was going to say,
and also I know that with a brand new museum space and lots of, big and bold, new spaces, I'm sure there's going to be people who want to do special events, businesses and the like. Some people might want to have birthday parties for their kids. So tell us how they can get involved in renting the museum.
Yeah, we can do all of that. So we do, corporate rentals. We'll do weddings in the museum. You mentioned birthday parties as well for kids or adults. We even plan on having a public 21 and over night the first Wednesday of each week. So it's, if you don't want to come to Sloan while all the school kids are here, we have a special night just for you. We do have a liquor license and a bar, by the way. So if you want to get a beverage and a refreshment on that 21 and over night, you can do so. But the all the rental events, you would go on our website and look under special events and rentals and contact Olivia Kashuba. She's our special events and rentals coordinator, and she can go ahead and get you booked and set up with a date if you want to rent the new Sloan Museum for an event or corporate gathering or birthday party or anything you want.
Bob, I was going to also ask about this weekend. So quick little plug about the Sloan Auto Fair.
Yeah, this is Auto Fair weekend. Here on the 25th and the 26th, we are hosting the Sloan Museum Auto Fair. It is back on the Cultural Center campus here around the Sloan Museum. People that are here for Auto Fair will get a very sneak peek of the front of the building, and then a quick look into the vehicle gallery. We are still installing all our exhibits, so they won't be able to go into the other gallery spaces, but they will get a very sneak peek in that. But generally we have, 500, 600 cars out here, generally a couple thousand people over both Saturday and Sunday. Let's have some good weather, please. Seems like we almost always get a little rain during this event, but hopefully not. Hopefully we'll have a great weather weekend and a great turnout for the Sloan Museum Auto Fair. We hold this every year in late June. And it had been out at Crossroads Village the last couple of years because Sloan was under construction, but now we're back and back here on campus.
That sounds awesome. And I think it'll probably be a little warm, but I think it'll certainly, if everybody stays hydrated, everyone will have a great time.
Yeah, right now, Saturday looks like a great day. They got a little bit of rain in the forecast for Sunday. Hopefully that dries up and disappears. We'll see.
Well, is there anything else that we missed that you wanted to mention before we sign off?
Just one more thing that I think I wanted to mention. We did re-envision a lot new about the new Sloan. One other thing that we've developed is the new Sloan Museum app. And so that will be available on your app stores and Apple Play here pretty soon, that you can go and download it. What this is used for is actually more depth into any exhibit. So you can go up to each exhibit, we'll have QR codes, you can scan them, you can find out more material, there will be video, there will be other information on there. So if you're looking for something beyond the text label with an artifact, you can scan that QR code and go a little bit deeper, find out more information. So it's something that people might want to do before they attend the grand opening weekend is download the new Sloan Museum app. You can just type Sloan Museum into the App Store or Google Play, and you should be able to find it here within about 2 weeks or so.
All right, that sounds great. So thanks again, Todd, for giving us an exclusive sneak preview of the new Sloan Museum of Discovery. We're very excited, and for you and for the whole team over there as you're bringing an amazing project to fruition. We hope we're planning to be there, and we hope that a lot of people that are watching and enjoying this program today will have a chance to be part of it, and many, many, many others as well.
All right. Well, thanks a lot, Bob. Thanks, Brian, for being behind the scenes here and sometimes in front of the camera. We're kind of working our setup here, but we're really excited about the opening of the new museum. We're really happy to welcome everybody here. And again, great work that MotorCities is doing. We really appreciate you guys and all the work that you do to tell the automotive history of the region. So thank you. And we look forward to many great things in the future.
All right. Well, thanks again, guys. And I think we've managed to pull it off.
Good job.
All right.
Back to you in the studio, Bob.
Yes, back to me in the studio. So while we get ready to wrap up here, I just wanted to say thank you to everyone who has attended. And we are looking forward to the Sloan Museum of Discovery opening to the public Saturday, July the 16th. In terms of Motor Cities at Home, stay tuned to our website, motorcities.org. We will have additional programs coming up in 2022. So periodically check back, watch your You Ought to Know email every week for the latest details on events coming up in the Motor Cities. And we'll have our schedule of fall Motor Cities at Home programs coming along very shortly. So thanks a lot. We're at 1 o'clock. I hope everyone has a great rest of their Wednesday. Take care. Motor Cities at Home, out.